This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Do you ever have a story that you just can't get out of your head?
One that you play the details of over and over with your friends?
Well, you've come to the right place. I'm Claire.
And I'm Susan.
And this is Justice Pending,
a weekly true crime podcast where we discuss tantalizing crimes with more questions than answers.
February 9th, 2004. A two-lane road in rural New Hampshire. A black Saturn in a snow-dusted ditch. And a young woman who, depending on who you ask, was rattled, guarded, maybe just trying to get some alone time. But 10 minutes later, she was gone.
No footprints into the nearby woods. No calls from her phone. No confirmed sightings after 7:46 p.m. Just a hard stop to a life full of motion.
All right, this is the episode that many of you might be waiting for. It is the disappearance of Maura Murray, one of the most enduring missing persons investigations of all time.
That's right.
I'm Claire.
And I'm Susan.
And this is Justice Pending.
So let's set the scene. Who was Maura Murray? The name that alliteratively just lurches off the tongue in any of the true crime circles. If you were to ask anybody, any true crime podcaster, any true crime enthusiast, anybody from the northeast of this country probably knows about this. Maura Murray was 21 years old. She was a UMass Amherst nursing student who had been a decorated runner and a West Point cadet before transferring. People called her an overachiever, disciplined, bright, and stubborn in the way that high performers can be.
Yeah, and in the months before she vanished, there was definitely stress in her life. People talk about the fact that she had this credit card fraud case, right? It was under investigation. It was going to be dismissed as long as she kept her nose clean. There was, some family issues going on with her sister. She actually had 2 car crashes in 3 days. One first in her dad's car and then in her own car, the Saturn, the night that she disappeared.
And the stresses really did seem to be overwhelming Maura. On the morning of February 9th, she emailed professors about taking a week for, quote, a death in the family that didn't exist.
That's a huge red flag, right?
Yes. I mean, you don't jinx that, right? You don't say there's a death in the family, although it is a believable reason.
As a college professor, I definitely believe whenever my students tell me that they have a death in the family, I'm not thinking this is a diabolical plot to get out of class, right? So the idea that she put out this email about needing a week off, that really starts to feed suspicions that she was trying to get out of town.
And to back that up, she had called about lodging in New Hampshire and Vermont, some hotels, but had reserved nothing. She withdrew $280, bought about $40 worth of alcohol, picked up some forms, checked her voicemail at 4:37 p.m. And on February 9th, that is the last use of her phone on that day.
Yeah, so just a flurry of strange activity, right? Almost like she's planning for a trip that she's told no one about, and it's just really bizarre. So less than 3 hours after that last use of her phone, her car would be found sitting sideways on Route 112 outside Haverhill, and Maura would be nowhere to be found.
And so now let's get into the crash on Route 112. At 7:27 p.m., neighbor Faith Westman called police. There was a car in the ditch on Route 112. At 7:42, school bus driver Butch Atwood called too. And he said he'd spoken to the driver, a young woman who seemed shaken but not injured. She said she'd already called AAA, which records later showed she hadn't. And Atwood went home, which was about 100 yards away, and he called police anyway.
Yeah, so this is extremely interesting, right? So you would think if you crash your car and people are trying to help you, that you would be grateful, that you would accept their help. You would at least tell them the truth. So why would she say that she called AAA when no such phone call exists, Susan?
Well, we have, I mean, she'd had two accidents at that point.
Yeah.
Had $40 worth of alcohol. Had she been drinking? Was she gonna get a DUI? Was this part of the keep your nose clean for the credit card key? I mean, she might
Ooh.
have had all of these things swirling around in her head and actually didn't want anyone to call the police. There was not another car involved. It was just hers.
Yeah.
So why the need?
Yeah, I can see that. I definitely see if she'd been drinking, why
Mhm.
she wouldn't want authorities to report to the scene and do some type of sobriety test, right? So even though AAA isn't the cops, if they get there and notice that she's inebriated, I think they have a duty
Right.
to call the police. So by 7:46 p.m., the first police officer arrived and the driver of this Saturn is gone. The car was locked. The airbags had deployed, right? So they were obviously blown. And looking inside, the officer saw a box of wine with, this red liquid had splashed onto the driver's door and the ceiling of the car. So someone was drinking, it was open.
Mhm.
And there was a Coke bottle that was suspected to contain alcohol, actually. And, this is 2004. So there also are MapQuest
Mhm.
printouts with directions to Burlington, Vermont.
Yeah, there it is. I mean,
Yep.
she got scared and, didn't want the police involved. She clearly had been drinking. It probably caused the accident, and
Yeah.
she would have been very, very much in trouble. Searchers, so here you have someone who has, yes, talked to a driver, confirmed a sighting, and I mean, what is that to I mean, 4 minutes later, when the police arrive, she's not there. So searchers fanned west from the scene. No one initially went east, which is a gap Maura's father, Fred, would fume about for years.
Yeah.
And later a contractor said that he saw a young person walking eastbound between 8 and 8:30 p.m. He couldn't be sure of the date and only had reported it months later.
Yeah, we talk about this all the time, but hindsight is 2020, right?
Yeah.
He had no idea this was going to be a missing persons investigation that would go on for 20 years
Yeah.
and that people would be scrutinizing this timeline and any sightings. But unfortunately, it's just lost. We don't know for sure if that was Mara. But people have definitely speculated that could have been her, and it likely was her, especially since none of the searchers went east. There were no footprints in the woods, no signs of a struggle, and all we have are theories at this point, Susan.
Yes, and rewinding sometimes helps.
Yes.
Go back a little bit to February 7th, so 2 days prior. Maura, this is one of the accidents. Maura crashed her father's car into a guardrail after a night out. Um, seems maybe she did some drinking and driving often.
Yeah.
Unsure if she was sober that night. But insurance said it would cover it if she filed some forms. So on February 9th, that's just what she did. And we have the ATM withdrawal, we have liquor store visit, we have the RMV paperwork, and it reads like someone tying up loose ends, and planning, maybe a reset, not an exit. Just seems, like she's busy that day.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to me, it sounds like someone planning for a trip, like a solo road trip or vacation. It really it's not the time that you would do it because you're in the middle of school and you're, not a person of means. You're a college student on a strict budget. So it's kind of strange, but in her dorm, Maura had boxes that were packed. There was something on top of them that has caused some people to wonder, why did she print this? But it was a printed email to her boyfriend talking about their relationship problems. So depending on your point of view, it might be like a breakup, or, maybe they're just wanting to, maybe she's just wanting to take a break, not necessarily break up, but like once, in the famous Friends vernacular, we were on a break.
Yeah.
Who knows, right? But it definitely shows that they were having issues.
'Tis the season for all your holiday favorites, like A Very Jonas Christmas Movie and Home Alone on Disney+.
Did I burn down the joint? I don't think so.
Then Hulu has National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
We're all in for a very big Christmas treat.
All of these and more streaming this holiday season. And right now, save big with our special Black Friday offer. Bundle Disney Plus and Hulu for just $4.99 a month for 1 year. Savings compared to current regular monthly price. Ends 12/1. Offer for ad-supported Disney Plus Hulu bundle only. Then $12.99 a month or then current regular monthly price. 18 plus terms apply.
Meet the computer you can talk to. With Copilot on Windows, working, creating, and collaborating is as easy as talking. Got writer's block? Share your screen with Copilot Vision to help spark inspiration, and use Copilot Voice to have a conversation and brainstorm ideas. Or maybe you need some tech help. With Copilot Vision, Copilot sees what you see. Let Copilot talk you through step-by-step guidance so you can master new apps, games, and skills faster. Try now at windows.com/Copilot.
Yes. And it does seem like she was also indecisive about where she was going. She had apparently looked at lodging in Bartlett, New Hampshire, which was a place she knew from family trips, and Stowe, Vermont. But in the car, there were directions to Burlington. So we have multiple destinations, no reservations. It's the map of a mind that was very unsure, undecided where to land.
Yeah, I mean, it's really like a choose your own adventure kind of situation. You have all these leads of places to go. Obviously, only one can be right, and it might be none of those, right? She might have gone completely a different place, but people were treating this as a missing persons case from the jump. So Haverhill Police Department and then later New Hampshire State Police, they were on the case, and they at one point suggested that Maura was possibly suicidal. This is a label that her father, Fred, has always rejected, but you have to look at all the possibilities. And when someone disappears into thin air, and it's possible that they could have harmed themselves.
Especially everything that had just been happening in her life. She's breaking up with her boyfriend.
Yeah.
She's lying about a death in the family. She's leaving town. She's drinking a lot. It seems, I guess you could make the case for it. Her family never has.
Right. It's very chaotic. It's such a chaotic time. And I definitely know from my work in true crime, as a producer for 48 Hours on CBS, and for other podcasts that we've done together, Susan, for Final Days on Earth. And, we know that suicide never makes sense, that there's very rarely, I will say there are exceptions, but very rarely does it make perfect sense. Does someone leave a note? It's so rare. Most of the time it catches everyone by surprise, and people do not understand how this person could be in a state of mind to take their own life when they have so much potential, so many options, so many people who love them, so many ways to pivot from a seemingly, difficult situation, but it shouldn't be the end. And, it's never going to make sense to everyone. And we don't have proof, of course, that that's what happened here. But it is a theory that I think a lot of people have clung to, and I think it's a very real possibility, right? It is something that we can't rule out at this point because we don't have Maura's body. We don't know what happened to her.
That's right. And through, the tips at the time came really in waves. Alleged sightings, river and woodland searches, bone fragments, ultimately not Maura's. So here we are. We can't rule
Yeah.
anything out. And you have to follow as many leads as you can.
Right, right. So, we're talking decades passing, right? I mean, 2004, that's actually when I was in college. I remember hearing about this case. I remember thinking that surely we were going to get answers, following it, wanting to know what was going to happen. It's been the subject of countless podcasts, television shows. It's one of those that just is this enduring mystery, Susan.
I know. I mean, she has certainly become famous, whether she wanted to or not.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we know her, we know her family's name, we know so
Yep.
many facts about her life. And so ahead of the 20th anniversary in February 2024, the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit and the FBI released an age progression photo of Maura to spur tips. It was an image of what she might look like at 41. And that release launched some new coverage, some local coverage, as well as just people remembering this case and starting to try to put their heads together.
And it continued. I mean, it did fuel the conversation, because even by the following February 2025, this year,
Yeah.
21 years, her sister, Julie Murray, spoke again about the case's toll and the family's new private investigator support. And more, another vigil was held to mark the date. So it really is snowballing in attention again.
Yes, it seems like there's new momentum, right? So let's talk about some key witnesses and that 10-minute window, right?
Mhm.
So we have some two different people, right? We have Faith Westman and Butch Atwood, and they really kind of bookend this time that Maura was seen. So Faith sees the crash at 7:27 p.m. And Butch talks to Maura shortly after that, where he offers help and she declines. So he phones, to authorities at 7:42 p.m. and an officer arrives at 7:46 p.m. I mean, talk about a great response time, right?
Really?
So it's 4 minutes between his call and the cruiser's arrival, and that is really the gap that people are looking at, for answers in those 4 minutes.
That is just so crazy to me.
Yeah.
There's the possibility that Maura got into a vehicle headed east,
Yep.
which could explain the rapid disappearance in those 4 minutes. If
Yes.
so, who's, a good Samaritan, something more, predatory, or did she slip west in evading that first sweep? There's no confirmed footprints. There's no camera. There's no phone ping.
Yeah, I've always thought it looked like a hitchhiker case, like gone wrong. And, a single woman hitchhiking will get picked up pretty fast, Susan. There are
Yeah.
a lot of truckers, a lot of people that will see a woman walking alone and be like, you know what? I'd like some company. I will go ahead and pick up this woman. And whether or not they are truly a good Samaritan or they have ill intentions,
Right.
I certainly wouldn't be caught dead hitchhiking because of
Right.
what I do for a living. It's just too terrifying to think of the possibilities. I'd rather take my chances in the woods, quite frankly. But this is, an adventurous woman. This is someone who possibly was trying to get out of there fast because she was worried about a potential DWI situation. Getting into someone's car could have felt like the best option to Maura Murray at that time. And it would certainly explain how she got away so fast and was not seen by any of the people searching. Well, she's in another vehicle moving away, right? I mean, that explains it to me in a way that other theories don't. Now, what happens to her after that? How do you, account for the fact that she's never been found? Um, I don't, have the answer to that. But my theory, if I had to, go with what I think's most likely, I think that she was hitchhiking and that's how she got away and potentially got let out somewhere else. I've always kind of thought that she wandered after the hitchhiking, that possibly she wandered in the wilderness and like died of exposure, like the elements. To me, that's kind of how I, in my own head, come to terms with the fact that no clues have ever surfaced. But I don't know. I mean, we've got the Coke bottle in the car. There's some things to go on. People think that her statement to Atwood about calling AAA, which was a lie, along with telling people that a family member had died, which was another lie, point toward a desire to avoid attention and, try to have like I don't know, Susan, maybe a fresh start.
I would agree with you. There was a very comprehensive podcast that came out a decade ago,
Right.
or called Missing Maura Murray, and they covered this in absolute detail. It's a great podcast if you want to, check that out. Which I know you have, but if listeners want to check out Missing Maura Murray,
Yes.
they had pointed to kind of like a lodge bar not too far away that was easily walkable. And if she had stumbled in there and, met with the wrong people. So it might not have been a car, although I tend to agree with you. That's the quickest and cleanest getaway. And people would have been searching the area and probably have gone into that lodge bar situation.
Yeah.
And, either spotted her or said, yeah, this girl did just walk in here, that kind of thing. But, a voluntary walk away, a start over, people cite the emails and cite the box, like you were saying, West Point to UMass, that's a big change. The note to her boyfriend, that's a change. It's a personality that could decide quickly, but there's no bank activity. There's no authenticated contact now in over 2 decades, and the cold case units really call this the walk away start over possibility unlikely, but not impossible.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that after all this time she wouldn't contact her dad or sister, like give them answers, relief. I don't know, Susan. In my mind, I don't give that much chance of being true at this point. Sure,
Right.
I could see it could start that way.
Right.
But I really lean toward the accidental death, exposure after fleeing the crash. Yes, there was a large search footprint, but it was imperfect. I mean, especially knowing that they didn't even go east initially.
It reminds me of the case we covered, and I'm sorry to be blanking on the name, where it was the hiker who they looked like 20 meters
Oh,
left.
yes.
They would have seen her, and it was an accident,
Right.
So it
Yes.
is possible that people missed.
Yeah, I mean, you would think after 21 winters, you'd expect that the body would be discovered, but also you think about wildlife in the area, you
Yeah.
think about all the things that happen to bodies that are left out in the open. There's a lot of degradation that goes on just to organic matter, and her body would break down, and if you talk about animals in the area, they would potentially not leave much of a trace. So it's a possibility. It's not a very satisfying theory, is it, Susan?
No,
Because yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you'd think there would be bone fragment. You'd just think there would be evidence, but you're right. In the wilderness, probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's also, we've talked about it, the abduction by a stranger on a lightly traveled road in poor lights. I mean, sure, she's alone, probably intoxicated,
Yeah.
freezing. She has been to West Point. She thinks she's tough, right?
Yeah.
I would think if I went to West Point, I'd think I was tough, so you could handle yourself even in a situation, maybe getting into a stranger's car, but there's never been a trace. There's never been someone that came forward. And this case was made so public that it would be hard at the time not to be that person who had picked her up, if that is what happened, and said, oh, shoot, you know what? I did pick up a girl. And here's where I took her. But no one's ever come forward.
I know it. And I mean, we talk about all the possibilities, and I've always said that stranger danger is so rare, but it does happen. And, if we're talking about just rare but tragic possibilities, I mean, got to go with serial killer driving a, long haul trucker serial killer. They do exist. And that is one possibility for picking her up and then going far, far away and not being able to, locate. The family's view has evolved toward foul play. Her sister Julie has publicly said she believes Maura is likely dead at this point and that someone else is responsible.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. It's been too long.
Yeah, and so let's talk about one headline that keeps surfacing online. There's Stephen Baldwin. So he was an animal rescue operator who was later convicted of multiple felonies. And he is a former West Point student as well. And his fingerprints reportedly matched an item in Maura's car.
Yeah, this was a big deal.
Yes.
Recently. Really stirred up the case again.
So, this was journalist James Renner. So he was the one who broke this news, and he said it was like a CD case, I believe, that the fingerprint was on. Now, Baldwin has acknowledged that he was told about a print match in Maura's car. He's always denied involvement in her disappearance. It sounds like they knew each other, they were friends, so the idea that he might have touched a CD case in her car, it doesn't mean that he had anything to do with her disappearance. Of course, people are clinging to any information. The fact that he's been convicted of felonies, it makes people very suspicious.
It does. And they did know each other. They were both cadets at the same time at West Point. He, it's not an official, New Hampshire State Police press thing. It's just sort of this theory that's been carried by journalists and advocacy organizations. It's a lead, not a resolution. And, he's saying he has no involvement.
Right. I mean, there's just some kind of weirdness around this guy. I mean, he's changed his name before. The animal cruelty charges, people look at that pretty seriously. So it's suspicious, Susan. I'll leave it at that. I think we don't really have anything else to go on. So, of course, people cling to anything that they can.
That's right. And this, I think Maura's case was the first true crime zeitgeist, I would say, of our modern time. It was really the internet's first true crime obsession.
Yeah.
Blogs, boards, the Reddit, the podcasts, the documentaries. I mean, and that energy usually can surface tips, but then it also creates this noise. It targets innocent people and really just spins these conspiracy theories out of thin air.
Yes, it is such a challenge, like, to balance the need for attention on these unsolved cases and then the idea that people are going to go off the deep end and start accusing people of crimes and they don't have any evidence. So it's definitely a scary situation for Maura's family. I mean, they've tried to channel this attention productively. They want to make sure that people remember that Maura was a real person who was loved by her family and friends and is not, something created just for people to think about all the possibilities of her, life and death. But, she's someone that mattered to them. And it's just heartbreaking to think that, we could have so many eyes on this case and still not have any answers.
Yeah, I think her podcast is called Media Pressure, and did it win an Ambi? I mean, it won some big podcasting award.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really respect and am so impressed whenever victims' families can become these advocates and storytellers because, I mean, the trauma that they're enduring, the unbelievable nightmare that they're living through, and then they are able to publicly talk about it and like become the voice of their loved one. It's incredibly admirable. I feel like that takes a strength that we just can't even imagine, Susan.
I agree. Totally agree. Um, Much like this case, we have sort of been all over the place. So do you want to just distill this down? So, if anyone does want to jog their memory of the night, we can reconstruct the route, the scene.
Yeah, I mean, so we have this 7:27 p.m. phone call, right? Whenever the crash is seen by Faith Westman, right? And then it's 7:35, maybe 7:40 whenever Butch Atwood's bus idles at the scene. He offers help. He says that Maura declines, and then he drives home and calls authorities at 7:42 p.m. It's 7:46 p.m. when the first officer arrives and sees that Mara's vehicle has the doors locked, the airbags deployed. He notes the box wine and the printout map to Burlington.
Yes, and then the searchers search west. They don't search east. There's no footprints into the woods noted. A contractor later describes a young person walking east around 8:30. But that's in a month's later report, and he's uncertain of the date.
Yeah, and so we have to remember, that the activity that Maura did just leading up to her disappearance, the fact that she took out $280 in cash and she, goes to the liquor store and she files reports of her prior car crash. Her last phone activity is 4:37 p.m. when she checks her own voicemail.
Yeah, I mean, the picture we're getting is not of a long planned escape. It seems very, closer to a pressured young woman carving out a few days alone, maybe some time to think.
Yeah.
And this second crash turns this plan into a major crisis.
Yeah, I really get that just chaotic series of events where it's like, God, it just seems like more than she could take, just a total, we talk about people just having like a breakdown or a meltdown, and it seems like that's what happened here.
Yeah.
We try not to force these neat endings into a really messy, complicated story, but the timing, the minutes between Butch Atwood's call and the officer's arrival, and the absence of any signs in the woods, it really points toward a pickup, a hitchhiker situation more than somehow that she walked away from this and, just on foot from then on out. That doesn't track for me.
Yeah, and the personal contacts, the emailing professors, picking up the forms, looking but not booking rooms. It just really leans temporary break, not goodbye forever.
Right.
Doesn't, of course, that doesn't preclude tragedy being best laid plans, but
Yeah.
it kind of argues against a well thought out planned disappearance.
Yeah, I don't buy that she was going to start a new life, but I do think that she was looking for an escape.
Yeah, agree.
So let's talk about where the case stands today, Susan.
Sure, it's still an active investigation. It's with the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit, and the FBI has done the age progression. There are annual vigils. There's family-led outreach, and they have a private investigator. Tips are still welcomed. Everyone's saying no detail too small. It really is true, and they're still taking any information that anyone has.
Yes, I mean, Mara's family wants nothing more than to find that piece of information that breaks this case wide open. So if anyone out there knows anything, please come forward and share what you remember, what you know. I think, it's been over 20 years. It's time, Susan.
It's time. Agree. There's a sentence Maura's family uses: "We'll leave no stone unturned," and they really do still mean it. Have you met Julie? You've met Julie, haven't you?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I thought you had. Wow. Okay.
No. Gosh. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I go to lots of different podcast conferences and places where I meet different members of victims' families and other people, but I haven't met Julie Murray.
Well, maybe one day.
Yeah, but if anyone out there has information, I'm going to give the phone number to the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit. It is 603-271-2663. You can also submit tips online at fbi.gov.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Justice Pending, and we'll be back next week with an all-new case.
Justice Pending is recorded in Dallas, Texas for Rebel Studios. It's hosted by me, Claire Sanamaw, and Susan Passoni. Our theme music is Bending Truth, licensed at premiumbeat.com. We appreciate all listener feedback. Leave a review wherever you're listening right now, and we might read it on the air. Thanks for joining us.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.